right, I just want to quickly go over this reflection assignment with you. First, I posted a link to a video about the Electoral College, so please make sure that you watch that video and you understand the Electoral College and what it is. I want to make sure that you understand that since we haven't really gotten to an in-depth look at the Electoral College yet. But that is why Congress was in session on January 6th. They were confirming and counting those electoral college votes from the 2020 presidential election. So it was more of a ceremonial task. They were confirming those votes, okay, when that group stormed the Capitol. So I just want to make sure that you understand the Electoral College and how it works. So the assignment says that by now, I think most of you are aware of the events that took place at the U.S. Capitol last Wednesday. The purpose of this assignment is to provide you with an informative overview of the events of January 6th and give you an opportunity to reflect from the perspective of course content. So I want you all to take what happened last week and look at it from the perspective of things that we've talked about in AP Gov so far this year. So there are a few different parts to this assignment. So for parts 1 through 3, you're going to review the documentation from the day's events. And then for parts 4 and 5, you're actually going to respond to questions that ask you to consider the January 6th events in relation to some topics that we've discussed in class. So number 1 is a timeline from Wednesday's events and how they've unfolded. It's from USA Today, which is generally considered to be more of an unbiased, centrist source instead of right-leaning or left-leaning. Okay, so USA Today, and it's just a timeline of the day's events and how they unfolded. The second part is some videos from the Associated Press. And I've chosen these videos because they don't include any kind of commentary from any news reporters or news anchors, anything like that. These are just videos that shows what was happening on that day. So the first video is the speech that President Trump gave Wednesday morning, then protesters outside of the Capitol building, the video that was posted to President Trump's Twitter feed on Wednesday afternoon when lawmakers were being evacuated, and then the speech that Mitch McConnell, who is Kentucky's representative, gave after everything happened. Okay, so again, videos for you to watch, don't include any kind of commentary. And then this slideshow is from the Washington Post, and it has some really compelling photos from the Capitol that day. So after you have looked at the timeline, watched the videos, and reviewed the photos, you'll go on to 4 and 5. So number 4 says, consider Shays' Rebellion, an event we discussed during the Constitution unit. Remember, Shays' Rebellion was an uprising that eventually led to the Constitution. So Shays' Rebellion was one of those events that proved the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation and eventually led to this Constitution that we have today. So there are a couple of links provided below to refresh your memory on Shays' Rebellion and what it is. So if you need to review those, go ahead. And then it says in at least one paragraph, and I'm not talking 2 sentences, 5 to 8 sentences, really reflect here. Compare and contrast last week's storming of the U.S. Capitol to Shays' Rebellion. How are the 2 events similar? How are they different? And after you've compared and contrasted, consider this question. Is this type of violence ever justified to achieve a goal? Okay, so that's the questions for number 4. And then number 5, it says, earlier this year, we discussed Federalist number 10, in which James Madison discussed the dangers of a faction. So again, I've included a couple of links to give you a refresher on Federalist 10 if you need that, since the Constitution unit was at the beginning of the year. So here it says, again, in at least one paragraph, 5 to 8 sentences, again, don't want just 2 sentences, really reflect, answer the following questions. Was the group protesting at the Capitol an example of a faction that Madison warned of? Why or why not? Okay, so answer that question, but make sure you explain your answer. And then, was Madison correct in his argument that a large republic would combat the dangers of factions? Okay, so answer those questions. And this is really just giving you an opportunity to reflect on the events that happened last week, but doing so from the perspective of topics that we've covered in this class. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Again, I would recommend watching that Electoral College video before we get started too, just to make sure that you understand what that is and how that works in terms of an election. So again, please let me know if you have any questions.